What's up, everybody? I'm back with my review of Big Brother 24. It's going to be coming up a couple days after the finale, but I'm recording it right after the finale ended about half an hour ago. It ended. We got our winner, we got our favorite house guest, and season's complete. And it's the 24th edition. Cannot wait for season 25, which is confirmed to happen next summer. So that's going to be a lot of fun, which is also going to be the last season before I'm eligible to play Big Brother. So next year's going to be a big one for me. Can apply, but that's next year. Let's go and talk about this year. I'm going to try and go through everything that happened this season. The pacing. I'm going to react to who won the game and who I think they should to say if they should have won the game. I'm going to go through how the pacing went again, like I said. Was there a lot of big moves? How good the gameplay was and that kind of stuff. We're going to go through all of that in here. There's two major events that I'm not going to touch on a whole lot here, if at all. And that's because I've done videos of them already. And that's talking about the Paloma situation from week 1. And talking about the Kyle situation. As well. I'm not going to talk about either of those. You want to get videos about those, already up on my reactions playlist on the channel. You can find them, talk about them. Did full in-depth videos about those when those happened. So go check them out there. And then also, so I'm not going to talk about too much about those. I did find it funny though that Paloma wasn't even like mentioned at all. In the finale. She didn't even come on for the finale. They didn't talk about her at all. She wasn't eligible for America's Favorite House Guest. So that was pretty funny. I did not think. I had a feeling that they weren't going to use. This is how usually when you walk out, they are not going to give you any rewards whatsoever. Like I was talking about, people get paid. They get paid for being in the house week by week, even if they don't win the second place money or the first place money. They still win something. But Paloma's not going to win anything because she walked out. She's not going to get anything. She didn't even get a chance to be recognized at the finale or with the America's Favorite House Guest or anything like that. So that's wonderful as well. So that's pretty funny. But we're going to talk about how the pacing of this season went. They shortened it down from 100-something days. They were up to over 100 days in the house as of the last couple of seasons. They shortened it down to about 82 days. Through, starting the season a lot later. They usually start in June. They started it in July this season. They started usually like the middle to end of June. They started in late July this season. For mid to late July, I think it was. I don't remember exactly when it started, but it was, they started it, and even with the shortened date, I didn't think it was, it didn't really help the pacing at all. I thought it was still a pretty slow season overall. It wasn't. I mean, the double eviction they had one double eviction this season, and it was a true double eviction, where they spread it out over 2 hours. But I think that was still pretty fast paced, and that was a pretty cool double eviction to watch. And there were some other points in the game where it seemed to pick up a little bit, but you think they shortened it down. I mean, there's about 3 weeks almost that they shortened the season down, and it still was not fast paced at all. I think throwing in a second double eviction again, and also maybe a battle back or something like that to create a little bit more suspense, a little bit more tension in the game, I think would have definitely helped in keeping up the pacing. I think a second double eviction, regardless if you throw in a battle back or not, would be good. I think the appropriate, if they want to really make the pacing good again and make it so it's not a super slow season, you got to have it between about 70 to 77 days. 70 days is 70 days is about, that's about 13 weeks in the house. That's about 11. So really, they really would aim, because you throw in, because that was 70 days is 10 weeks total in the house. It's 13 weeks for each house guest that evicts, so the final 3 don't count, but then the other 13, they get evicted at some point during the season. But then you give a couple weeks back, shorten it down a little bit because of the 2 double evictions, and then also the final 5 and final 4 get evicted Wednesday, Thursday before the finale, respectively, and then that shortens in another week down. They could do it that way. 77 days would be if they decided not to do the final 5 and 4 a back-to-back, or they decide not to have one of the double evictions. You could still have it that way, but obviously it's not that simple because they have like Paloma evicted day 9 or something like that. That's when the first eviction happens. They have a couple days before things really get going to let the house guests get to know each other, everybody move in, and also to get promotional stuff filmed, like the pictures taken and get the memory wall going and stuff like that. So the first week is usually longer than just a week for that reason. So that's why it's a little bit longer probably than 82. Otherwise, I think they probably tried to stick within that formula. But we'll have to see. It did not seem fast, even though it was a little shorter than normal. That doesn't mean there wasn't a ton. That doesn't mean it was really a boring season. I think at least compared to the last couple of seasons, it was a lot more exciting of a season as far as predictability, and as well as not so much fights. There was a couple like little blow-ups here and there. There was the Michael blew up a little bit during the double eviction when he got evicted. But also Daniel blew up a couple of times, which I thought was pretty stupid, but it provided a little bit of fighting. And other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot of major conflict that sparked any like major fights in the house. Of course, there was other conflict, the Kyle situation and everything that took place there, but that didn't spark like a massive fight. Everybody was pretty civil about that. Respectively speaking, they were pretty simple, pretty civil with all that. They weren't like loud in your face, they handled it well given the circumstances. But as far as so there wasn't a whole lot of that, but a lot of the evictions, especially in the early part of the game, there were a couple of good blindsides. Of course, Pooch getting blindsided because he volunteers to go up on the block and then ends up getting evicted, and then it happens to Amira the next week. She gets blindsided, and then Daniel is blindsided when Nicole gets evicted, and everything that happened there, and then eventually had Michael getting evicted. That was a pretty big deal. But outside of probably those Pooch, Amira, and Michael, the rest of the evictions were pretty predictable, and we thought, okay, they're gonna happen. I guess Alyssa's eviction was kind of weird because it was expected to be a 2-0, and Brittany split the vote so that Monty would have to break the tie. I guess you can count it as that. But I don't count it as such. She was going home regardless of if Brittany had split the vote or not. So that doesn't really count my book. But compared to last season, especially the season prior, the All-Star season 22, I definitely think it was some awesome evictions. Even you can compare the season 21. I do think this is the best season of Big Brother since BB20, and probably the best season of the show outside of BB20, the best since BB18. I think this was a great season with some unpredictable. This is grand speaking. The new era of Big Brother from like BB16 to now is definitely been pretty boring, and I think that's because they've casted a lot tamer people who are looking to build a brand, build an image on the show, and are looking to continue working with the company moving forward instead of just, going in, trying to win the money and moving out. And so it's not a lot of big fights and stuff like that. But even so, maybe 16, 17, 18, even 19 and 20 had their moments, and season 21 even had its moments with day 44 and everything that happened after that and during that. So you count that, and then even it just seems like the fights are getting less and less and less. It seems like last year there were like no fights at all. This year there were a few. So maybe we're back on the upward trend. But if I get in that house, I'm gonna fight to the death. So get ready for that in season 26 possibly. But But I mean, it was crazy everything that. So, but moving on, there were some good game moves and there were some good players this season. Obviously, the dominant player of the season was Michael. He won 9 competitions, which ties Janelle's record for most competition wins in a season. He won 6 power vetoes, which is the most won by any player ever, and in a single season at least, and 3 head of households to go on that. And he was seemingly unstoppable. He had won the last 3 vetoes or last 2 vetoes, I think it was, and in the HOH, the final 7. He seemed unbeatable. The double eviction, they took their shot, and it was the perfect opportunity. That's why I like the double eviction at the 7 and final 7 and 6. I think that's a great spot to put it. I think that double eviction is a great idea to put that double eviction there, because it's kind of that's kind of like a transitional period from like the middle point of the game to the end game. So you're seeing the people who look like are probably going to make the final 2 or final 3 are going to show their cards and get out the players that maybe been running the show all the time, and are going to get them out, or at least take a big shot at their group, because they're getting to the end. There's only a couple weeks left at that point. It's a great place to put it. I love them. I love that they did there, extending it to 2 hours. I mean, they really were hands were kind of forced. I mean, they had to. Because of some other stuff that they had to show, the jury house and whatever. By the way, I don't like them doing the jury house outside. I think it's kind of weird. I liked seeing the inside of the jury house, or at least a little bit of it. And now they have to do, and they had to do that because of COVID. But having it outside was just a little weird. I guess it's not that bad, but there's some other. I kind of liked Michael. I thought he was a little egocentric, a little bit too. I think he definitely was a little bit like, well, now I'm in trouble. I'm gonna be a big baby about it. Kind of, not really. He was pretty good. I respect him for winning all the competitions. He definitely shocked me. I did not think he was going to win any competition whatsoever. I thought he was going to be the nerd guy who kind of floated under the radar and struck at the end, kind of like Ian, before team, but he did just that. I mean, he won all the comps. He was a beast all season. I like some of the other players too. I liked Monty. I liked Turner. I think they were 2 good competitors. Joseph was okay. I didn't like he seemed to just have really bland of a personality, especially when he went to Direfest. I heard it seemed like he just lost all morality. It seems like he just got degraded as a person at Direfest when that happened. We'll get to that a little bit later, the twists of the season as well, and I'll rate how those went, I thought. But overall, I mean, I didn't hate him, but I didn't like him that much either. But I respect him for being like a level-headed guy in the portion of the game. Now, there's some players I really didn't like. I didn't like Nicole and Daniel too. I didn't like either of them. I really didn't like Pooch either. I thought he was very, very egotistical. And the player I probably didn't like the most was Jasmine. I did not like Jasmine. I think a lot of people can get me on that. I think she really played up this injury that she got at the I mean, they even let her win the get to the actual HOH competition. By the way, what's up with the pre-comps? What's up with these qualifier rounds for the HOH competition? Why were they doing that through the first few weeks of the season? It's so stupid. That's a big portion of the pacing not working really well, because you need to fill Sunday's episode with content of the actual HOH competition. So you throw in these pre-comps to fill in the end of the Thursday slots. You don't have to, so you can save it all for the Sunday portion, because they're not going to talk too much. And there's not going to be enough content to fill to the Sunday portion because it was so predictable. And I think they were really banking on that being a thing. And eventually they got rid of it, so that's fine, whatever. But at the beginning of the game, it was awful. Absolutely awful. I hated these pre-comps. They were so dumb, and they screwed over people that could have possibly won the actual HOH competition because they couldn't win the stupid pre-comp of getting an envelope or scaling this balance beam. They could have easily been the HOH competition itself as well. And it just didn't make any sense to me why they did that. But anyways, they let Jasmine squeak by even though her foot hit the floor at that pre-comp, the balance beam one. And then she goes off and broke her ankle. It was really a sprain. I don't know why she was on the boot and on the crutches for as long as she did if it was just a sprain. She was on those crutches, on a boot or a crutch until she got evicted. She got evicted in 10th place. She was on a boot or a crutch until that point. And she was, and even in the jury house, she was on a boot, but she got off of that eventually. It took her almost the whole season. It was like the Christmas injury here. Okay, what are we talking about? Are you talking about a sprained ankle? Or are you talking about a fractured foot? What is it? And I think she played on that so much because she didn't want to compete in these competitions. She wanted to squeak by, and she didn't want to play the game. And so that really annoyed me. It really, really did. So yeah, I don't know why she was the boot and everything else. And she was just really an egotistical pig. I mean, she complained about them. They were showing this in the Friday episode last Friday where they were recapping on the season. They were showing how much she really just complained at these every little things. And I know I have personal experience with that, people I know. And so I could relate to that. And it was crazy and crazy how cringe and how much hard that was to watch, because how can you do that? Like, you're on a crutch, on a broken foot basically, and these house guests are being so nice to you by making food for you and giving it to you and compiling to every demand that you have, and you're going to complain because they don't cook the way you cook at home or your family cooks. They don't know your family. They don't know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to detail instructions. Like, what do you expect? So that was pretty annoying to watch. But she was by far my least favorite house guest on the cast. But then also, I didn't really hate anyone else. Yeah, I didn't really hate anybody else at all. They were all, some of them infuriated me a little bit at some points, but no, didn't really make too much of an impact on me. I think they did a pretty conservative, good job of casting in that proportion. But then also, let's talk about the twists of the season, because there were some pretty interesting ones. The first one was the backstage pass, which we really never got to see come to fruition because Paloma was a part of the backstage twist and she walked out week 1. So it actually never got to happen in its full form. Basically, I think what was going to happen is they were going to compete, and if they lost, then they were going to go home. I don't exactly remember how it was going to work out. They detailed what was going to happen, like Julie Chen talked about it, but I don't remember exactly what was going to happen. All I remember is like they were going to compete and something was going to happen. But that was all thrown out the window week 1. And then we get a little bit later, we get the Festy Bestie twist. And this one definitely had a pretty big impact on the game because everybody was paired up with somebody else and they would be nominated together, and they would even play the veto together. And if they won the veto, then they would both come off the block together, and then a new pair would have to go up in their place. And then we ended up getting some trios when Terrence had joined the guys of Joseph and Monty, and then the season's leading alliance, the Leftovers, used that to their advantage, and was able to get out people that they needed to get out to move on in the game. And they really played, I think they played the Festy Bestie twist big time here. That didn't last all the way, though. The last major twist of the game, which I thought came a little late, but, it worked out fine. It was the Dire Fest, BB Fest, or it was the Big Brochella, I think it was called, and the Dire Fest twist. So, that's the final 10. 5 house guests stayed inside for the week at Big Brochella, while the other 5 went outside and stayed outside the whole week at Dire Fest. And I guess when you're filming this in California where it never rains, I guess it's a perfect chance to do something like that. I think it was a morally. Joseph got degraded so much because he couldn't be inside, and I don't think he was eating well or sleeping well at all. And so, Terrence won that head of household, and he also won that veto. And so there was like two separate games going on at once. It was pretty weird to see happen play out live. And of course, the leftovers were still in control at that point, but Terrence was one of the head households wasn't in the leftovers, and they got Joseph out because of it. And every move that was made at Dyrefest was invalidated the next week because of Kyle, and stuff that had come out before Dyrefest even happened. Nothing. Kyle's remarks about an all-white alliance proposal did not play into the factors of working at Dyrefest at all. It was mainly a move to get out a strong competitor, Joseph, and that is that. And I think it was a pretty big turning point in the game when that happened. And then, of course, that's when Jasmine got evicted in the inside portion as well. So that was definitely a pretty big twist, and it definitely shaped like how the tactic of the game was going to work moving forward. Because it was kind of just Big Brochella versus Dyrefest at the final 8 on, and eventually and it was the Big Brochella people that ended up winning that battle, because they all two of them sat in the final 2. Because then after that you had Kyle, Terrence, and then of course they got Michael out, and then they got Alyssa out. So 3 out of the next 4 evictions were Dyrefest people. So that was pretty funny. Let's see, but overall, the twists were okay. I'm not one to really always enjoy these very, very big twists that take away from really playing the game at its core. And as far as the backstage twist, that would have been a cool twist to see, and that would have definitely been a very suspenseful twist. So I'm kind of sad that one never actually worked out. And then the Festy Bestie twist, that one didn't play that one didn't change the game too much. I definitely favored the leftovers. We're going to talk about some of the dominant alliances next, so I won't go too much into that. Then the Dyrefest twist definitely was the one that picked up the pace of the game as the season progressed, and really, really had the biggest impact. But I mean, other than them splitting up into separate portions of the house, the game itself wasn't really, the gameplay itself wasn't changed. They still played an HOH, they still played a veto. They still had the regular evictions. There wasn't any other extra twists added onto that. So I don't think it had too much of an impact otherwise. So the twists were just okay. I definitely think the season could have worked out good without them. But maybe it probably would have been more boring, because we probably wouldn't have gotten Joseph's eviction, which I thought was a little surprising. Of course, they had a conflict with that and everything. But otherwise, it was alright. So, and then the alliances. The dominant alliance this season, like I said, was the Leftovers 7-person alliance. That was Monty, Taylor, Joseph, Turner, Brittany and Michael, and shit, I don't remember the other one. Fuck, who was it? I can't remember. Oh, and Kyle too. Forgot about Kyle. No, that was made in response to the bullying that Taylor had received in her first couple weeks in the house, and that was definitely a big portion of the season, was talking about that and Taylor's like comeback from that. We're going to talk about that all about later. That alliance was made in response to that, because there was another alliance called that Paloma had actually helped create in week 1, that later, when she walked out, turned into Pose Pack. Pose Pack was easily dismembered of, starting around week 2, week 3, until the kind of restructuring took place. That was not an alliance it's an alliance that I think would have worked out had Paloma stayed in the game, but definitely had some flaws to it, and that got him out pretty quickly. So not. It was really made to just bully Taylor as well. Like, they really just banded together to take Taylor out. And I mean, she ended up winning the game, but I think she won the game because she got bullied. I don't think so. You don't make it, and then maybe Taylor doesn't play. I don't know. It was a dumb alliance from the start. But so I was kind of glad to see it go and go down. As far as the leftovers go, I mean, they were running the game, and then Dyrefest screwed that up. So it was cool to see their like implosion against each other and really start to play their own games after the split house twist took place. But overall, I think it was a pretty solid alliance. And had, of course, you had Monty and Taylor and stuff like that. It was a dominant alliance that wasn't made based on race, but still produced, but was still produced. It showed that you could still produce a winner that's not white, and not have an alliance made up of made only include non-white people. I think that's a good word to put it. Because the final three, well, really final four, were all leftovers, and then so it was a still strong alliance because you had Joseph placed in ninth, and then Michael placed in sixth. Oh, then Kyle placed in eighth. Joseph placed in ninth. Kyle placed in eighth. Michael placed in sixth, and then you had Brittany, Turner, Monty, and then Taylor. That was the order that they finished in. Final 4, 3, 2, 1 to finish out. So that's pretty good average finish, all things considered. So that was a pretty good run by them. But unlike the last couple of seasons, there wasn't one dominant alliance that ran the season from like the very beginning to the very end. So that helped too. It helped increase the spiciness this season, or at least helped it, I thought. So it was pretty good. And then now, I guess it's time to react to who actually won the season. This was Taylor, and I should be pretty happy for Taylor. And on some level, I am. You know, she's a Michigan woman. Yeah, Michigan, woohoo! Second Michigan winner ever, behind Nicole Franzel. So that's pretty cool. She's also the first black woman to win Big Brother, which is really, really cool. She also took home the most money out of any house guest ever in one season at $800,000, $750,000 from winning the game, and also the $50,000 for the America's Favorite House Guest Award. So she is now the richest winner in the history of the show, which is really, really cool. So that's two records basically won right then and there. She also becomes the 8th woman to win the game, behind Lisa, June Song, Maggie, Jordan, Rachel, and then Nicole Franzel, Casey, and now Taylor. Those are the 8 woman winners of the game. So now they can realistically and fairly do an all-winner season, because now they have 8 women who won the game, and they can have 16 men who won the game, so you can pick 8 from that pool to try and do an all-winner season. I think that'd be really cool if they tried to do that down the line. I don't think it'll be next season, because they already said they're going to do casting for next season. I don't think that was really in the works. But now that they know, maybe season 26 instead of maybe me getting on there, which would suck. Maybe they'll do an all-winner season. That's also if they can even get enough players to do it, because like I don't think Lisa or June or Maggie are coming back to play the game again. Quite honestly, I don't know if Nicole Franzel is going to come back and play the game. I think the only woman winner that will come back and play this game again will probably be Rachel. I think she's the only. Of course, there's other women that will come back and play the game again. I think Janelle will definitely come back and play again. And I think there's a few others that they asked them they would come back and play the game again. But I think Rachel's the only women winner that will come back and play the game again. At least right now. I think Casey might come back actually too. I think she would, because she was going to be on All Stars 2 if it wasn't for having COVID. So maybe she'll come back. Probably nobody else though. I don't think Jordan's going to come back again. Definitely Nicole Franz. I think she's done. And we're not going to see Maggie, June, or Lisa again. They're way too old school players to ever come back. So, not going to happen. But now it's logistical and reasonable for them to be able to do it. And that's the part that we need to think about. So, that's pretty cool. But now back to Taylor. How strong of a winner do I think she actually is? I think she's a pretty weak winner, all things considered. As far as at least as far as like, winners, I think she's all right. I think she played a pretty decent game. Was it a winning game? I don't think so. Was it a decent game that at least can have some respect to it? Yes. But she did not win because of her gameplay or because of her resume. She won because of her story. She won because people knew because people had realized how she had been bullied and tortured and put down in the first couple of weeks in the season, again by that Paloma formed alliance and then later turned into Poe's Pack alliance. How they were specifically made to go after her. She cited that, and she beat them all. She beat everybody that was in that alliance, and she stayed past them. She persevered. She was on the block 6 times come eviction night and survived every single one of them. And she persevered, and she came back, and she cited it in her final plea speech. She said, "It's about adversity. It's about overcoming. It's about strength. It's about toughness. It's about resilience." And you look past that, think about it, and win the game. And she had a very confident attitude. Now, I will admit, I'll get to this a little bit later, but I did not watch a ton of the live feeds. I watched some, but not a lot. I watched more than I did last season, but not as much as I wanted to. But in the regular shows, her DR sessions were mainly about how confident she was and how she was saying, "I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do this. There's no way. Nobody else is getting in my way about this." That kind of thing. She was right. How much of that was in her control, I don't know. Because honestly, her winning's a great story and a great PR move for Big Brother, just like the cookout was last season. Now, they did not create an alliance this season that was blatantly racist. So I'm not saying she got carried that way. I think she definitely... Because, she killed the final speech. She had a great plea to win the game. And, the story's kind of hard to not realize how she should have won the game. But, her competition, when she had 3 comp wins, 2 HOHs, which one came during the middle portion of the game, one came in the final 4. She also had a veto win, too. And she had a pretty crucial role in the formation. She was the reason the leftovers got created. She didn't play a role in them actually getting formed. That was more Turner. Really, Turner was the big former of that alliance, but he didn't make the final 2. And I think Taylor also had a lot of things go her way. She would have 100% been evicted week 1 had Paloma not left. She would have 100% been evicted at the final 8 had the stuff about Kyle not come to been brought up. She would have, because she was the main target then. She was the main target in week 1, so she survived because of that crap twice. And others' expenses, which I'm not going to say was wrong that she stayed, but she got pretty lucky. Things came her way. Then after the Kyle situation, nobody wanted to go after her. Nobody wanted to target her because they knew how big of a moral it was to not go after her. And that really sucks because she basically got a free... Now, she didn't, at the final... take the final 3, for example. Monte and Turner were neck and neck. They were together the entire time. And they come back, and Monte wins the final head of household. Everyone and their mother knew he had to take Turner. They had a final 2 deal, and they were going to definitely go together, and they should have stayed together to win the game and go to the final 2, and it would have been a pretty dead even battle. But no, he takes Taylor. Because they hooked up at the final 5. Simping over a girl, and that's why she made it. And he probably had that back in his mind, I want an African American winner of the season again. Let's guarantee that. But also, Turner had a strong resume too, so I think Monte was kind of screwed either way. I think he was going to lose to Turner, and I also think he was going to lose to Taylor. So getting Turner out, I guess, was the biggest move to keep his resume going. But he also didn't have a really big case for his final speech at all either. He basically said, I didn't really do much other than what Turner wanted me to do at the final 6 and then getting Turner out at the final 3. You couldn't have thought of anything else. You had a crucial role in the formation of the leftovers. You formed some other side alliances. You stayed off of everybody's radar. You couldn't talk about any of that. You barely mentioned it. Come on, buddy. You got to be prepared for this. So that kind of sucked. But then, some other... Again, what can I say? Everybody's going to love this win, and Honestly, it's not a horrible win. I was hoping for an eighth a woman to win this game, specifically so they can throw in and start thinking about an all winner season now, because now they have enough. But just the way it happened, I mean, there was a lot of bullshit in this season that really just distracted from all the good moves that happened in the game. I mean, Michael's eviction, that double eviction was insane. And nobody's going to remember it because of what happened with the Kyle situation the week prior. Pooch's and Amira's evictions were crazy, but nobody's going to remember them because of what happened with Paloma beforehand. And that's going to be the story of the season, is Taylor and what happened to her and how she overcame it. And is it a bad thing? No. Is it what the season should be remembered for 100%? No. And what can I say? What can I say? But even with all of that, like I said earlier, this is probably the best season of Big Brother in the last 3 years. BB21 was just full of bullying, and a bully actually won the game. That just season leaves just a bad taste in my mouth. BB22 was awful, super predictable, super boring, horrible casting. BB23, I think, was rigged, blatantly racist, and was awful. No, it was super predictable as well. This season had at least a little bit of unpredictability and some good points of it as well. Strong competitors, and overall, still pretty deserving winner. Like, I don't think Taylor's a bad winner. I just don't think she was a good winner either. I think Monty definitely should have won over her, and she got lucky. And she can take her, but she's gonna take $100,000 to the bank. And Monty's only gonna take $75,000, and nobody else is really gonna take a whole lot to the bank. So Paloma's gonna take nothing. So you got that right, but I don't know. There's gonna be a lot up for debate, but. I mean, I can rant all I want, but at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. She won. That's final. Nothing's going to happen. What are you going to do? But, how do I think this season went overall? Like I said, it's best season since BB20. That doesn't mean it was really that great of a season. I still think BB 16, 17, and 18 were all better than this. I think it's probably the 5th best season in the new gen. So it beats out BB 19, 21, 22, and 23. But it's kind of like that middle ground. And I think a lot of BB 14, 15, 13, really 12, 11. I mean, 10, obviously, and probably the better. I don't know, it's going to be in the lower half of the rankings, but probably the higher part of the lower half of the rankings. My final score on this season, I'm probably going to have to give it a 7 out of 10. It did have a good story. And that's what people are going to remember about it. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth that this is what the game has become. It's become about race. It's become about politics. It's become more than just a game. And I hope next season it turns back into the actual game. But you know what? I'm happy for Taylor at the end of the day. And people who see this as a victory, congratulations. You won. I'm not saying it's a loss for me, though. I'm saying it's a win. Because we didn't get a blatantly racist alliance, and we got someone who morally actually tried to play the game. She was a good breath of fresh air for some good determination this season. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She wasn't afraid to, play hard, show her cards. Like, her hand was kind of forced, and I liked that. She had a lot of resiliency, but at the same time, she got kind of lucky, and that's what's going to be known for. So, what are your thoughts on this season? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the winner and what happened and everything like that. And if your thoughts on my thoughts about this whole situation. So, that's going to do it for this review. Stay tuned for much more amazing content. Like I said, I didn't get around to watching a lot of the live feeds this season either. I tried to, and then kind of starting right before the double eviction, like, I got COVID and my life got really busy with school, and I kind of just stopped watching them. Next year, I hope to plan on watching them more, the live feeds, because they made a lot of people glorified because of the editing that they did on the shows. Paloma, Kyle, even Taylor to an extent, and Turner and Jasmine and Nicole and Daniel. I mean, they went all in trying to make these people and they play these favorites, and they even try to downsize Nicole. They even not Nicole Taylor. They try to downsize a lot of the other things that happened in the season. So I know watching the live feeds gives a more authentic experience, and I can give a better, wholesome review of it. Because you learn a lot that they don't show on the show. So that's what I'll try and get around to do next year. And I'll be trying to do more Big Brother content during the season next year as well. Of course, you want to watch my predictions, see I was wrong. I think I picked Kyle to win the game. That was a bad idea. Miro is one of my favorites too, I think, coming in, and I think Michael was too. None of them won the game. I did not have Taylor winning this game. I did not. I'll tell you that right now. But history was made, and that's all you can say. But yeah, if you watch live feeds, let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. How much my thoughts about these players are correct or not, because so much you can do. But again, stay tuned for much more amazing content. I will do another Big Brother predictions video when the cast is dropped next summer. And until then, stay tuned for much more amazing content. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Goodbye.